Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Learning Outside the Lines with Kyle and Glenn. Or Glenn and Kyle, again, it doesn't matter. It is really good to see you again for our 6th episode. This is getting a lot of fun for us. Thank you for anybody who's actually taking the time to watch and interact with us. It's something we look forward to every day right now.
Every day. Kyle, how are you today?
It is, it's good. It's technically when we're recording this, it's the end of a week, so pretty excited about that. The sun is shining. I'm looking forward to stepping away from this dark room.
I'm upset about something, though.
What are you upset about?
I can't see your hair.
Oh, well, you can't see it anyway.
Sorry. It's going to be a thing.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with it. So let's kind of jump into it. So, Keith, what do you have? Glenn, I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay.
It has been a long week. Glenn, What do you have to share with us for your anecdote today?
So for my anecdote, this is a little bit of a change of pace. I was receiving some emails last night. Actually, I was checking my turn-in box for my digital platform that we use in Gwinnett County called eClass. And I noticed some students were turning in some work that wasn't actually what I assigned. And it was like the same mistake. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? So I wrote a little form email reply, like, just check the bottom of the module, the correct assignment's right there. Let me pull it up on my mobile device on my cell phone and let me take some screenshots to show them. So I pull it up and I try to find the assignment on my page and I'm scrolling down. This is just my module that I built, my cute little videos, my stuff I've embedded. And here's the work right down. Wait, where's the work? And it's actually because the way I had built it, you have to scroll over to find the whole assignment. Wow. So the chunk of what they were supposed to turn in wasn't optimized for mobile. So I had to laugh at myself and I completely flipped the script in the way that I was responding to my students, and which was a good reminder. We need to always grace, because I didn't optimize it. That was a complete boo-boo on my part. And I was about to, with the students, why didn't you do the assignment? Just read the module. It's right there. And that's not where, it was a reminder not to be coming from that place anytime right now when responding to students.
Yeah. And, one of the reasons we started this was a strong reminder about still creating carrying spaces, even if they're digital. Yep. I made those mistakes plenty of times when I was in the classroom. I think we all do. And it's all because we've had those bad experiences. We've had the student who's had ill intent, and that's worn on us and make an imprint. And that's human nature, I think. Yep. We have to remember a great majority of our students have good intentions,
Yes, they do.
And we got to keep that in the forefront of our mind.
We're just doing the best we can right now. All of us.
Right.
It's hard.
So what I want to share with everybody today is locally, we've had a lot of elementary schools lately that have been getting in their cars and doing parades to the neighborhoods of the children that they serve. So it's pretty exciting to share what just went through my neighborhood literally today.
This is so cool.
So here's just a quick little clip that I took personally of them coming up through our neighborhood today.
Hey everybody.
Wow.
It was neat. All the elementary age kids in the neighborhood came out and waved and were really excited to see them. So it's just a little piece of cheer. At the end of a long week, knowing that this is going to continue in the state of Georgia. Until after April 24th.
Hey everybody.
Even longer than that. So anyway, I just thought that would be a fun thing to kind of share here at the beginning. I also want to take a quick second to preview. We've got a special guest again with us today. We've got a master advanced placement teacher. He's probably rolling his eyes right now as I say that. But he really is. He's done a little bit of everything. So we'll introduce him a little bit later, but we'll have Nelson Dean join us. In the meantime, we're going to start off with part 2 of what we always do. Glenn, take us away to your digital teaching hack.
Okay, so this is something that I've actually written about in the GCTE publication that comes out every quarter, but it's just called Book Snaps. And there's actually a expert that I want you guys to check out named Tara Martin, who has a whole YouTube series on creating book snaps. She's written about book snaps. So just to give her some credit. But what a book snap is, it's using and there's so many different programs you can use. Snapchat is kind of what's popular right now with a lot of kids. But if they don't have Snapchat, if the kids are working off of cell phones or digital devices, or even just their laptops, the whole point is to take a picture of a text and then kind of edit that image to personalize it, to curate it, to kind of make it their own in their response to that text. So it's talking back to the text digitally, but doing it in some student-driven, like authentic ways. So these are just some pictures that come up when you do an image search for Book Snap to kind of give you guys some examples. She's got some great materials here on book snaps that are fantastic, like the do's and the don'ts. There's book snaps with Google Slides. So if you just look up Tara Martin and book snaps in general, you'll find a whole bunch of materials that are out there for teachers. But what I love about it personally is it's a great way to practice like vocabulary, grammar, sentences, content, different standards. You can have students annotate right there on the text. They can use emojis, bitmojis, putting images together and just kind of remixing the text with new meaning. There's so many different activities you can do with a book snap. But right now, in these digital spaces where we're working with kids digitally anyway, this is kind of a natural piece to kind of add to your digital teaching repertoire.
Yeah, and look, one thing I want to point out as someone who supports teachers that aren't in the English classroom, that's something you can use with any type of tech.
Yes.
If we're talking about a piece of engineering literature or literature for an audiovisual classroom, I mean, even math, right? You could take a snapshot of a math problem and do the exact same sort of thing.
Yep, digitally annotate it.
Yep, and interact with it. So I want to encourage that if you like that idea, but you're not an English teacher, don't let that hold you back from using that kind of tool and engaging your students in a very similar way. That's fantastic. Thanks, Lynn.
Hashtag book snaps.
Awesome. All right. So this is the part where we get to do what's the good word, and this is also the section we dedicate to bringing on our guests. So I'm going to introduce Nelson Dean to the party here. Let me go ahead and pull him up.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. All right, there you go. So,
hey, Nelson.
Gentlemen, how are we?
So Nelson's a good friend, first and foremost, more than anything else, but he's also an excellent advanced placement teacher. And let me tell you a little bit about this is the reason why I say such great things about him. He does AP World History, AP European History, AP Art History, and he's done AP Lang. So man's been around the block with advanced placement for a minute. He's volunteered for years and years, grading assessments, being part of workshops, helping other AP teachers get into the game. He's just real strong. We thought we needed to dedicate at least one episode to what's it like to be an AP teacher in this new landscape, right? And trying to do this, especially as the rules seem to be changing on us all the time.
Daily?
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, Nelson, I'd like to know a little bit from you. You know, what should educators who aren't AP teachers know about the current situation going on with advanced placement?
Gosh, that's a good question. So, I mean, I think the most important thing is that just like everybody else, those of us that are teaching AP are kind of waiting to get the good word from a whole bunch of different sources. I mean, obviously, we're all having to hear from our local and county administrations about how are we going to handle this and what are we going to do with this deadline, and if this thing's getting canceled, how are we addressing that. The tricky thing that I think the AP crowd has to deal with is that we're also getting a certain amount of information from the College Board, and we're having to figure out how to make those things kind of interlace so that we can do what we need to do for all of the relevant stakeholders. And at least at the time this video is being recorded, we're still waiting on a lot of that information, certainly from the College Board. They've told us that, traditionally, at least for a lot of the exams that I teach, the kids go and sit down in May and have a 3 or 4 hour exam that has a whole bunch of essay writing and all that kind of stuff on it. And they've told us that they're going to do a 45-minute free response exam online that's open book, because obviously how could they control their access to resources if the kids are at home? But we haven't heard anything about what is that going to look like, what's the format going to be, what kind of skills is it going to employ. They have told us which parts of the courses they're going to be assessing. They basically said the stuff at the very end we're probably not going to assess because, there's just too much crazy going on that's associated with that. But I think that's the most important thing for sort of teachers that aren't doing AP to know, is just recognize that those of us that are going through that particular set of circumstances are facing that along with everybody else. And then we've kind of got some other things that we're having to deal with, and we're just kind of waiting for information. And so the kids that you're teaching who may also be taking advanced placement courses are also waiting on that information. Because obviously they're kind of going, okay, well, if it's going to be online, when is it going to be? There's going to be 2 exam dates. Which one am I going to do? Is it going to be like the stuff we've done, And some of those older students who are really, really academically motivated, I think that level of I don't want to say lack of clarity. So what?
Ambiguity?
See, that's the word. That's the good word. I think that level of ambiguity is very sort of concerning for some of the kids, as well as for some of the educators and their parents and everybody else too. So it's just a weird time.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to, so my second question was going to kind of be about the challenges, but I really think you laid that out by just throwing out what the context of the situation is. So how have you found yourself in the last couple of weeks since this started trying to overcome some of those challenges, especially when you think about allaying your students' fears about the unknown, the ambiguity, as well as instructionally?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing in terms of the sort of dealing with their sort of concerns and fear and all that sort of stuff is to just find ways to keep communicating with them. What I'm doing with my students right now is I try and give them some short assessment every day, whether it's a thesis statement from an essay prompt or write a paragraph in response to this question. Like one I did with my AP World and AP Euro kids the other day, we were sort of covering the Holocaust. And I posed the question, certainly the Holocaust was really, really terrible, but there have also been other genocides in the 20th century, like the Armenian genocide during World War I, and the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda, and Ukrainians in the Soviet Union, and all that sort of stuff that, at least in America, don't necessarily tend to carry, I would argue, the same level of cultural weight across the population.
And awareness, yeah.
And just letting the kids sort of respond to that and talk about it. And so I try and give them something small like that every day. And then I try and give them some kind of feedback on that every day, whether it's, hey, next time you need to make sure that you're watching out for this, and be careful and double check this. Or if it's just, I think that's an interesting response. I had not considered that. And then once or twice a week, I try and hop on some kind of a platform like Zoom and give them the opportunity, if they want to come and ask questions. And I always try and just start with saying, how are you guys doing? Have you and your parents driven each other crazy yet? Did you guys hear that supposedly we're going to be out for a few more weeks? What do you think? Just to give them a chance to sort of talk. Because I think that a lot of for them, a lot of the fear comes from the fact that in some ways, even though they can talk to each other, there's a loneliness there because we're in this situation that's very atypical and we're not in the classroom and we're not seeing each other every day. So I think the more communication they get, even if a lot of it is kind of grounded in, in the work, is good. And I think that kind of dovetails into how I would respond to the second part of your question, which is, one of the things I always try and maintain in the classroom when I'm in front of the kids is that balance between regularity and sort of getting out of the comfort zone. Because obviously we've got to sort of drive the kids out of the comfort zone to be able to grow and all that sort of stuff. But a certain amount of regularity is healthy for us, and it's healthy for them to have the expectations be clear and know, at least if we're sort of, jumping into this particular end of the pool, that we know how the pool works. And I think that, maintaining that has been the trickiest part for me. I mean, there's a ton of resources available. So part of it is sifting through, what do I want to use and what do I not? But then also figuring out how much feedback to give, when to give that feedback. When is it good for me to give them maybe several assignments in a row that are all sort of doing the same things in the same order, and maybe the assessment's a little different at the end. And where is it good for me to give them something completely different? And how does that dovetail? So, I mean, I guess the thing that I keep going back to is I kind of keep feeling like a newer teacher than I am, because we're kind of teaching in a slightly new environment, right? So I kind of feel like I'm in that second or third year where I know the content and I know that I know how to teach the kids, but things are just, I'm just not necessarily feeling like I can be quite as comfortable there. So, finding ways to deal with that and try and strike that balance, I think, which then dovetails with just communicating with the kids and make sure that you're talking to them. I think that's the thing that I've found that has been the most challenging, but as I'm working through that, that's making me feel better about it.
Yeah, we've seen a really constant theme about feedback, right? So feedback, being intentional about it, doing it quickly. We've talked a lot about it in almost every episode at this point.
Yeah.
We're running a little short on time, but I did want to ask you mentioned resources, right? And sifting through so many and which ones you want to use. If you were going to advise an AP teacher to be like, hey, this is a place to plug in, and I'm finding really good use out of it, what's one resource you would point them to?
Well, so this is going to be different for every subject, right? I mean, and certainly, there's a lot of subjects that I don't know particularly well. I think two things. Number one, the College Board has provided us with a lot of different stuff between, practice questions that are available on AP Classroom and these new, video, the sort of YouTube series that they've just put out for review purposes. And, like depending on exactly where you are in the course and what you're doing, some of that may be more useful than others, but there's a lot there. And the nice thing about having it coming directly from the source is that there's a certain understanding that you're going to be able to, I don't want to say trust, because that's not the word I want to use in terms of like not trusting other people's stuff, but just knowing that it's going to be aligned in a very particular way. And that solves certain problems for you in terms of, figuring out how do you want to use it and all that sort of stuff.
No doubt.
So I think that, but then the other thing I would say is trust the fact that the other stuff that you already have is still good, because a lot of that stuff we've been putting into Word documents and putting online for kids for a couple of years, if not longer anyway. And that stuff doesn't lose validity, even if you're having to use it a little bit differently and getting the kids to look at it from home.
I love it, man. Yeah, those real important pieces of advice there, I think. It sounds like the College Board is being very responsive considering the situation.
They have, and even though there are times when I think we all wish that information would come out more quickly, I like the fact that at least they're saying, hey guys, we're working on it and we're going to let you know by this date, right?
Well, to piggyback off of those resources, Glenn, is there anything else you wanted to chime in about before we go outro?
Let's go outro.
All right. So to kind of connect with what Nelson's been telling us about, I wanted to go ahead and share that YouTube station that they've created that is doing this review work on behalf of everybody. So let me go ahead and share that here. So if you go into YouTube and go to the user advanced placement, this is what you'll come up right here. They've got their homepage here where you can connect with everything that's already been recorded and done. But my understanding is that they're doing live video feeds as well that then get posted up here on YouTube. But it seems like whatever you may be teaching in the AP world, there's some great content or pieces here. So like AP Art History, for instance, it'd be interesting looking at the playlist materials, processes, techniques, interactions within and across cultures, theories and interpretation, specific arts, purpose, audience. So they're kind of continuing this collection of things that people can tap into just for a knowledge base. And like Nelson pointed out, they're not going to put up anything that's not going to be of value going towards preparation for the exam at this point, since we're in unprecedented territory with that as well. Nelson, is there anything you'd want to add to what's kind of on this YouTube channel?
Yeah. So I guess the one caution that I would provide is that some of that stuff, there are some things that they've uploaded that the College Board has now come out and said, hey, this particular standard isn't going to be evaluated on the exam this year. But in spite of that, I think, and I haven't certainly gone through every single one, even for the subjects that I teach. But I do think that having another educator who is talking about the material in a way that connects skills and themes and all that sort of stuff, and, the way that the students need to be thinking for the exams, I think that that's useful. And then the other thing too that I'm also trying to remember, not only with this, but with a lot of the other stuff that I know that we're all making and coming up with and finding, is that, even if we're all back in a regular classroom next year, some of this stuff is going to continue to be useful, and it's stuff that we can push out to the kids for review if they miss a day and all that sort of stuff. So, I think trying to take the long view there is valuable as well.
Great, man. Well, hey, we're going to go ahead and head off into the sunset, but thank you for watching as always. You can connect with me on Twitter at the Prof Jones,
at gchant668.
And I don't know, Nelson, do you connect with people out on the social medias?
Not as much. I'll acknowledge I'm a little bit of a dinosaur. So if you really want to chat with me, just get in touch with one of those two guys, and they can probably hit me up.
100%. All right, everybody, have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.
Happy spring break.